We are now live. It'll take 45 seconds for the first person to join.
I'm so glad you're hearing what's going on.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's telephone town hall with Senator Al Franken.
I'm here.
Right there.
Okay.
He's running for re-election for the U.S. Senate. Mm-hmm. I am Patrick McGill, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's event.
But I'm here.
And we will begin in just a moment, and we're excited to have you join us today.
I'm excited.
Before we both begin, a few quick points to make. Right now we're dialing out to thousands of people, so just stay on the line, and we'll be hearing again from Senator Franken shortly.
I'm here.
Also, we want to hear from you. If you want to ask a question directly to Senator Franken,
that's me.
Just press 0 on your phone at any time, and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators, and we'll get you lined up to go live on the air. Again, press 0 if you have a question or a comment, and you want to go live on the air with Senator Franken.
Good.
If you just joined us...
Oh, my goodness. Okay, go ahead.
If you just joined us, welcome. We're going to get started shortly. Welcome to the telephone town hall with Senator Al Franken.
I'm here.
He's running for re-election, and I'll be your moderator. We're going to begin in just a moment.
Soon, I hope.
20 seconds.
Okay.
So thanks for joining us. Right now we're dialing out to everybody. And if you want to get in line to go live on the air, just press 0 on your phone at any time, and we'll get you lined up to go live on the air. And with that, enough of me. Here you go.
Yes,
Senator
enough
Franken.
of you. Thank you, everybody, for joining in, and I hope for donating maybe a little later. I want to tell you a little bit about my race and what I face in November. In 2008, which was the best year for Democrats in a generation, you may remember that my race was kind of close. It was 312 votes. I beat Norm Coleman, who was the senator then, and he evidently still has some feelings about this, and he handpicked my opponent, a guy named Mike McFadden, who is an investment banker and has a lot of money. He also personal money, and he also has the backing of Coleman's super PAC, which is backed by Sheldon Adelson. Remember him? And also they've got the Koch brothers are in this, and so is Karl Rove. McFadden attended the Rove's candidate summits, and Rove has personally touted him in interviews on Fox News, and super PACs have already launched attack ads against me. And the Chamber of Commerce just endorsed my opponent, McFadden, and has promised to spend significantly in the race. Now, this guy, he got the endorsement and just won the primary, and Rasmussen poll today had him down by 8. But that's too close for comfort, and I know this big spending is coming in. He did get the help. He got the endorsement with Michelle Bachmann's help. He got it on the 10th ballot, but it was Michelle Bachmann who made the difference, and he won the primary election with 72% of the vote. Now, he's raised a lot of money in this campaign. He's a very well-connected investment banker. Also, the NRSC, which is a National Republican Senate Committee, has helped him. Mitch McConnell, John Thune, have all backed him. He's got about $57 million himself, and he's willing to keep funding his race. he's up on the air, and we know this race is going to be tight. We know it from our research, and not just because of his money, but because he just has been successful, very disciplined about not taking any positions. Coleman picked this guy because he was a blank slate. He never voted in a primary till last week. The first time he ever voted in a primary. This guy, I will say, doesn't know a lot. For example, when the Hobby Lobby decision came out, he was asked what his position on it was, and he said that, well, he didn't want to talk about polarizing issues. He just wanted to focus on health care and economic issues, not understanding that women's contraception for women is a health care issue and an economic issue. So, and then when he finally commented on it, he praised the court for their decision. So this, in midterms in Minnesota, we're predicting about 650,000 fewer voters than we had in 2012, and a bigger percentage of those drop-off voters are Democrats, and we will not win unless we turn out these voters. That's why we have a very aggressive a field operation in partnership with the Minnesota DFL. That's the Democratic Party in Minnesota. We've been having thousands of conversations with voters every week. We need your help to keep getting our message out. So if you would like to donate, if you're willing to donate to my campaign, please press 7 to do so. That would be great. So I cannot do this without you and your support, and then I will win in November and go back to the Senate and keep doing the work I've been doing.
Great. And that's press 7 if you want to be connected to one of our operators right now and are willing to contribute to Al's campaign. If you want to go live on the air and ask Al a question, just press 0 on your phone. And we're going to get started with our first question. Charles in Indianapolis, you're live on the air with Al Franken.
With McCutcheon and Citizens United, there's a movement to overturn those laws that say that corporations are people, that they can contribute unlimited amounts, and on top of that, you can have inversion of a corporation choosing their domicile overseas and avoiding paying U.S. taxes. What can you do about the Citizens United overturn and about the inversion?
Great question. On Citizens United, I've co-sponsored Tom Udall's amendment to essentially a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. Now, this is passed, but on a party line vote through the Judiciary Committee, we will not get it done on the floor the way the Congress is configured now and the Senate is configured. So what we really need is, but we're going to keep pushing this because most of the American people, a large majority of the American people, are against this unlimited money, this corporate money in the system, and it has really damaged the confidence that people have in our democracy. And you see, especially all this secret money, and I led the effort on disclosure. So what we really need is a change in the Supreme Court, because this is a 5-4 decision. And that's why it's so important that we keep the Senate. And that's why it's so important that that you help me out and that I get there. So that is the most likely change on this that's going to happen is going to be if we get because this is a 5-4 decision, if we get a 5th member of the Supreme Court who will vote to get rid of Citizens United. On the inversion thing, which it's kind of a separate issue. This is about corporate, about the tilt toward corporate power. And again, our Supreme Court has been doing that on one 5-4 decision after another. I am a co-sponsor of Senator Levin's bill Carl Levin's bill to make this inversion, to change the rules for inversion, where you have to have a much higher percentage foreign ownership of the corporation in order to invert. And then this would be retroactive. So it would go back to, so these companies are talking about doing it now, they wouldn't do it. And that, I think, has a real chance of passing.
Great. Let's go to our next question. And if you want to ask a question, just press 0 to get in line. And if you want to donate, just press 7. We have operators standing by. Hang in there. Charles in New York. Another Charles. You're live on the air with Al Franken.
Yes, hi. Al, we are contemporaries, and I remember campaigning back in the 60s and 70s when the voters were not as uninformed as they are now. Why are we not spending funds on informing voters, and I'm speaking in terms of developing teach-ins and simulcast teach-ins, because as far as I can see, and I do a lot of campaigning, we are campaigning to deaf ears in many cases, because they just do not know the workings of government, and they do not know what has developed. I think we should spend a little more campaign money on teach-ins.
Well, we have done tele-town halls where we try to get people on a format like this, but it's not a campaign thing. It's just a tele-town hall to talk to people in Minnesota about issues. This is a long question, a long answer. It's a subject about sort of Americans' knowledge of issues and of democracy. And one of the pernicious things, this goes back to Citizens United, is that what we have seen since Citizens United money has come in, we've seen a coarsening of these ads. We've seen far more ads that contain misinformation. I tried to do this with Progressive Radio, with Air America, and I did a radio show for 3 years, which was, I think anyone who listened to it would agree, was very substantive. So this is something that I've been focused on for many, many years. And I wrote a few books about the other side on that.
Senator, why don't you ask our first survey question?
Okay. Where is that? Let me see. I see. Okay. I talk about a lot of different things on how we're going to move the country forward. This is it. What message do you think I should highlight most? Speaking of Charles's question. And by the way, you don't have to be named Charles to ask a question. Which message do you think I should highlight most in the last couple months of this campaign? Press 1 if you think it should be the importance of investing in education. Press 2 if it's how to make health care affordable. Press 3 if it's protecting Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Press 4 if it's about promoting equality for all our citizens. And press 5 if it's about talking about how to find a common ground to make Washington work for America.
And we'll get you those results shortly. Let's go to Judy in Washington, D.C. You are live on the air.
Hi, Judy.
Senator Franken, you're my senator because I live in Washington, D.C.
Right. I'm sorry
and
you
I
don't
have no
have
senator.
real...
You're it. You're it. I don't follow things as closely as I might, more than many people, but why are they targeting you? Why are you the number one target of the opposition? You're the good guy. You, as I understand it, you and your wife have reached out to the other side. You've had dinner parties. You've tried to meet them. Why do they despise you? Why are you the number one target? Aren't there other people that they could take down? You're the good guy.
Well, you look, it's politics. I do have some friendly relationships with some of my Republican colleagues, and I've actually had kind of conversations where one of my Republican colleagues will give money to my opponent, and he'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I was told to by the leader," or something like that. And you can't take it too personally. The thing is that they like to use me as kind of the boogeyman because I've had a history of writing about, Republicans, and in a way that, I wrote a book called Lies and Lying Liars Who Tell Them, A Fair and Balanced Look at the Right, and I'm kind of a lightning rod. So they think that I should be vulnerable because of my high profile, and I'm a good fundraiser for them. They like to use me as a fundraiser.
And we have the results from our survey. The number one answer was protecting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. That's what they think you should be talking about.
Is there a breakdown?
35% said that.
Okay. What was second?
23% was press 1 about investing in education.
Okay.
4 and 5 tied at 16%.
Okay.
And 10% said how to make health care more affordable.
Okay. Well, we're going to try to do all of those things, actually. Obviously, Medicare and Social Security. Well, Medicare has a lot to do with making health care more affordable. We've done a lot. We've slowed the growth in Medicare per individual. The individual patient in Medicare, the growth in the last 3 years has been the slowest, I believe, in history. And we've done a lot of good things in the ACA to do that.
Okay.
While expanding benefits, by the way.
Well done. Next up, we have Susan in Bethesda, Maryland. You're live on the air.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. In addition, I've been following this very closely for a number of years, and I personally feel that the presidential elections were stolen both in 2000 and 2004 in Ohio, which brings me to my point. In addition to the corporate money that we were just talking about, flooding politics, and, of course, the egregious gerrymandering of districts, I was very concerned last summer, of course, when Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act was thrown out by this court. And
Sure.
I'm wondering what legislation is on board, at least to make an issue of. There's a huge, if we look at Ferguson and we look at everything around the country, North Carolina's Moral Mondays, this is an enormous issue to be tapped nationally. In addition, I noticed on your 5 choices that you didn't mention the whole issue about war on women, which I think is always a winner. And I think both of these things touch into a fundamental democratic...
Well, we were talking about promoting equality for all citizens, and I think women and the people who, were covered under the Voting Rights Act, that goes to the issue of equal rights in a very central way. The Voting Rights Act is another perfect example of this court voting in a 5-4 time after time, a 5-4 majority in a way that is undermining our democracy. This was and is an activist court. The Republicans used to say, they don't say this so much anymore, they used to say, well, what I want for a Supreme Court justice is someone who doesn't make law from the bench. Well, they overturned the Voting Rights Act, which was passed unanimously by the Senate and had incredibly few dissenting votes in the House. This was judicial activism at its worst. North Carolina and Texas immediately after it was struck down went after certain voters with voter suppression. So we do have we had a hearing on the Leahy bill, which would and Sensenbrenner in the House, who's the chair of the Judiciary Committee, who's very good on this. He's a conservative Republican, but he's been very good on this because he's been around a while. We're going to try to bring up, we are bringing up, and we're going to pass it in Judiciary Committee, on which I said, I'm sure. And we hope to pass it through the Senate. And it is a bill that basically what the court said is that we had to rewrite the rules on when there's pre-clearance, on what jurisdictions the Justice Department would have pre-clearance on. So, and I think it's a good law, and I sure hope it passes.
And if you want to give to Senator's campaign, just press 7 on your phone. We've got operators standing by. If you can't contribute tonight but want to pledge an amount, if you press 1, that'll mean you pledge $25. Press 2 if you're willing to pledge $50. 3 to pledge $100, and 4 to pledge $250. And if you press a button now, someone will follow up with you tomorrow or the next day from the campaign to collect your pledge.
It's very
amount.
Sophisticated, everybody. This is very sophisticated. It's the first time we've done this, or I've done it. Patrick, you've done it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm here.
Okay.
Cynthia in Connecticut, you are next up.
Okay, Cynthia.
Hi, Al. First of all, I want to tell you how much I admire you. And number 2 is, are you really afraid that the Senate might lose its Democratic majority? It's hard for me to believe that could actually be.
No, it's very. I'll tell you why it could happen. I'll tell you why it could happen. It's because 2008 was a really good year for us. So we have, I think, 24 seats up, and we've had some senators in some red states retire. We've had a retirement in Jay Rockefeller retired in West Virginia. Tim Johnson retired in South Dakota. And Max Baucus retired in Montana. And all those states look very, very hard. They look hard for us to keep. So the map is not good this cycle. And we got to hold it this cycle if we can. And it's a midterm. And it's the 6th year of a 2-term president's 2 terms. So this is very much in jeopardy. It really is.
Okay. Next up, we have Catherine in Pennsylvania, and my notes here say that you just donated to the campaign, so thank you.
Hi, Catherine. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Why did you donate?
Because I think that you are such a great senator. I've watched you on C-SPAN many times. Whenever whenever you have the floor and you're speaking, and I admire your the way you conduct your conduct yourself as a senator. That you just don't go on all the talk shows. That you only have interviews in Minnesota and talk about issues that affect Minnesotans. And, of course, you do talk about issues that affect all of us. And so I just admire the way you conduct yourself. And
Thank you.
Yes, and you know that I've been a supporter of yours. I mean, I can't give this is the biggest contribution I've made, but during the recount, I was sending you $10 and $25. So I've been, your supporter from day one.
Well, thank you, Catherine. Boy.
I know that you're going to.
Okay, cut her off. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. That was a joke.
You're going to stand up for us when it comes to the Republicans trying to put Medicare in a voucher system. I'm a senior, and also cuts in Social Security, and yet they don't ask the wealthy to give one dime more. And the Ryan budget is a disgrace.
Yeah.
So,
look, what we've done through the ACA is extend the life of Medicare. This is the members of the board on the Medicare Trust Fund. We've extended the solvency of Medicare by 11 years. 11 years. The ACA is working. And it's working. There are some problems with it that we have to address, but it is working. And because of it, we've extended the solvency of Medicare, and we no longer have people who can't get covered because they have pre-existing conditions. Kids can stay on their parents' plan until they're 26. The donut hole's been closing for seniors. This has done really good things for Medicare recipients. They get free preventive care. We've eliminated the cap that insurance companies can put on how much they'll pay for, and that means that people, it used to be that 50% of all bankruptcies in the United States were caused by a healthcare crisis. This has done an amazing number of things. In Minnesota, we reduced the number of uninsured by 40%. In Minnesota now, 95% of Minnesotans are covered. And I want to thank you for the nice things you said about the way I've tried to be a workhorse and not a show horse. One of the things I did in ACA was put in the 80-20 provision, which says that insurance companies have to spend at least 80% of their premiums on actual health care. And if they don't, they have to rebate the difference. In the first year, 13 million Americans benefited from those rebates. The next year, it's 8.5 million. This year, about 6 million. That means insurance companies are getting more efficient. And as a result, and this has been credited by the Kaiser Family Foundation and others, that this provision has been the thing most responsible for healthcare premiums increasing at the lowest rate in decades.
And if you want to ask a question, just press 0 on your phone. And if you're willing to donate to Al's campaign, just press 7 on your phone. And we've got operators standing by. Next up, Beverly in New York. You're live with Al Franken.
Hi, Beverly.
Hi, Al. How are you?
I'm great.
Certainly.
I'm
good. Good.
I'm enjoying
my
it.
question. Oh, good. My question, if you're ready, is I have wondered, how is it that corporations can have so much money to put into campaigns? I thought the first obligation of a corporation was to pay the stockholders. And how are they holding out that much money that they're not distributing to the stockholders? And is there some legislation that's needed to help correct that problem?
Well, I think that, a lobbyist for a corporation and the CEO of a corporation would say, by putting this money into politics, we get a large bang for our buck because we can donate, a few $1 million and put it here or there and get a tax loophole written. So I think they will make the argument that we are taking care of our bottom line by putting money into politics. And that is why this is, in my mind, criminal. This Citizens United decision, which again was on a 5-4 vote in the Supreme Court, and why it is so essential that we can't let the GOP get the Senate majority, because the Supreme Court is so important, and we need to keep the Senate, and we need to keep, and then eventually keep the White House in 2 years, so that we can reshape this court a little bit, because we've had one 5-4 decision after another that has just been pernicious.
Next up, we have Herb in West Hartford.
Hello.
Hi, Herb. Go ahead.
Hi, Senator. I'm honored. I want to stress that I want very much for you to win in November, and so if my question suggests that I'm asking you to tilt at windmills and do something quixotic, I'd rather you don't do it. But my question pertains to whether
it is I, Don Quixote, the man of La Mancha. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. I hear it. You carry the tune well. Another secret talent.
The dream, the impossible dream. I'm sorry, go ahead, Herb.
Exactly. Okay, what I'd like you to do is to tell me if there's some way that something can be done to preserve the privacy of Americans from surveillance of their phone calls and Internet communications. But only if that doesn't paint a big target on your back.
No. This is, a very important question and also a very good question. I think you're talking about there's two kinds of surveillance in a way. There's the NSA and government surveillance, and then there's actual sort of private surveillance, which is, every keystroke you make, there are cookies in your, that are put on your computer to see how you're using the internet, and that can be a bigger invasion of your privacy than simply the government keeping the metadata. The metadata, and by the way, there were two programs. One was a phone program, which keeps all your metadata. It keeps all the metadata, which is all the phone calls basically made. But that was just what number called what number at what time. And there's a difference between that and looking at the content of the call and who made the call. And we've changed that. There's no longer is the NSA going to hold that metadata, but it's held by the phone companies. And it has been held by the phone companies for years. And now for the NSA or the FBI to access it, with domestic calls would have to be the FBI, they need a warrant. They actually have to go to the FISA court and get a warrant for each one now. That's a change. That's a change that is in this Leahy bill, which I've written the major transparency provisions in. I voted against the 215 and the 702 one was a FISA and one was a Patriot Act provision. The 215 is the metadata. I voted against that because there wasn't transparency. I voted against 702, which is the capture of email of foreign persons suspected of being terrorists. And again, I think we needed that, but I wanted more transparency provisions in that. And I've written the transparency piece of this new Leahy bill, which I think is going to be the Senate version of this, and will go to the House for conference, and then hopefully we'll come up with something. So no, this is a very good question for me, I think. And thank you, Herb, and it's not quixotic at all.
Next up, we have Willard in Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Willard. Yes.
Thank you. One of the strongest arguments the Democrats can raise, I think, is that when President Obama was elected the first term, John Boehner and Mitch McConnell both stated unequivocally that they were going to do their very best to make sure he failed. And they have consistently worked at that by obstructing legislation that should have gotten passed, by continually beating the drum, saying all the terrible things, putting a spin on everything that Barack Obama has tried to do. And they've been very successful in getting his approval rating down to the lowest we've had in a long time. But I don't hear the Democrats making that point. And I think that's a strong point that ought to be advertised every day in the Democratic campaign.
You know, it's ironic because, first of all, I agree with you entirely. I mean, Mitch McConnell said my number one goal is to see to it that Obama isn't reelected. Now, I wasn't surprised he thought that. I was surprised that he said that, because essentially that's unpatriotic, because you're saying, I hope the country fails so he won't get reelected. And, of course, the House, they all agreed before he was inaugurated that we're not going to vote for anything that this guy puts up. And that, again, same thing. And every one of them voted unanimously against the stimulus package and then held a party, even though it passed, because we had the majority in the House at the time. This is something I do bring up a lot. It's a tricky thing because the American people want the government to work, and they don't want division. And then as soon as you point that out, it sounds like you're being divisive. So you have to do this in a very delicate way. But I think that people appreciate it when you're truthful and sometimes a little blunt, which I can be. So thank you, Willard. You're right on. You're right on the money.
Next up, we have Greg in New York. You're live on the air.
Hi, Senator. Thanks for taking my call, and thanks for doing this. I think it's a great idea and very effective.
Yeah, I like it. Go ahead.
You just talked about wanting government to work, or the American people wanting government to work. There does seem to be, especially on the Republican side, an insistency that the government, the federal government especially, is bad for you. It's like a toothache and it has to be removed. And I mean, I don't know what sort of coordinated campaign happens in the House and the Senate by the Democrats on a national level to say, look, your federal government at work. And yes, there's things to criticize about it constantly, but here's what federal government does for you and why it's valuable compared to what a corporation does, for instance, for you. And I won't go on about my feelings about the federal government, but at some point I would love to see a bumper sticker that says, I love my federal government. And that's sort of absurd, but there seems to be this opposition to it. Well, maybe not, but I just, the opposition to it is so strong, and I think it undermines our government and our country.
Well, this sort of ties in with the previous question, which was part of what they wanted to do was make sure that things didn't work. And so even when we had passed legislation, they still continued to obstruct it as much as they possibly could so that we couldn't implement it or execute it. Say the Consumer Financial Protection Board, they wouldn't. Cordry was a great bipartisan choice, a wonderful choice for the director of that. And without a director, of course, it wouldn't have been able to do its work. And they tried to stop him just to make sure that the CFPB didn't work. And that's why they wouldn't they wouldn't confirm so many of the executive nominations that Obama made, and which was a sin. I mean, these are people in Homeland Security, like high up in Homeland Security, that they wouldn't confirm. So this is really it's been a disgrace. We had a hearing in the Health Committee on what creates the middle class, and there was a Republican witness who said his testimony ended with the idea that government doesn't work. Or no, I'm sorry. It was the idea that government can create jobs is a myth. And normally you ask questions of your own witnesses, but this guy, I just had to ask. So I said, now, and that was in his written testimony, which I had read the night before. But he didn't say it in his oral testimony. So I said, you ended your written testimony with this sentence: the idea that the government can create jobs is a myth. Is that correct, sir? Yes. I said, have you heard of the Erie Canal? Turned out he had. Now, the Erie Canal, which, by the way, that was actually a state government. That was New York State. The Erie Canal opened up Midwestern agricultural goods and timber to Europe because it was 97% more efficient to ship those goods over water than over land. And it created New York Harbor. I mean, it's enormously. Then I said, have you heard of the Transcontinental Railroad? That was a federal program. Have you heard of rural electrification? Have you heard of the internet, for example? And he said, well, okay, but yeah, the internet was developed by the DARPA, and that's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. But after they did that, then it's been the private sector has put hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars into it. And I said, that's the point. That's the point. And I said, we're on C-SPAN now. We're on C-SPAN. That's the cable satellite public affairs network. Who put up the first satellites? I said, I see you went to UCLA. That's a public university. Did any of your professors teach you anything? And then finally he just gave up and he said, well, okay, the idea that government can't create jobs, it would be absurd. To say that would be absurd. And I said, you have just changed your testimony 180 degrees, except that you've added the element of absurdity, which, by the way, was my job. That's what I used to do for a living. This is, my opponent talks about natural gas, the natural gas revolution, and cost of energy going down, and that bringing manufacturing back to the United States, all of which is true. The reason that we've been able to get natural gas from shale, no matter what you feel about fracking, was because of government research. I was just in New Mexico. I've just passed the Sandia National Laboratories, where they created three-dimensional microseismic imaging, which has made it possible to get natural gas out of shale. We need to invest more in basic research. We need to invest in the NIH. We need to invest in research in Alzheimer's. We need to invest in science. We need to invest in education. We need to invest in our infrastructure. Okay.
And we need to invest in Al Franken's campaign. So
you're
press
good.
7 if you want to donate to Al's campaign.
Not that good. That was pretty. Go ahead. Go ahead, Patrick.
Press 7 if you want to talk to one of our operators right now, so we can keep Al in the Senate.
Our operators are standing by.
They got nowhere else to go but talk to you. So press 7 on your phone, and we got time for, I think, one last question.
Okay, Joyce.
Joyce in Michigan. You're up with Al Franken.
Yes, hi, Al.
Hi, Joyce.
I was interested in the Citizen United decision in terms of wanting to overturn that by Constitution, by amending the Constitution, which to me is a really struggle, uphill climb to do something like that. And I thought that there's a couple other things that could be done, and I just wanted your opinion about this, that might, mitigate some of the damage from that. One being maybe tweak the tax code on 501(c) corporations so their political spending gets taxed, maybe almost taxed out of existence.
Yeah, that probably would be as hard as getting this amendment passed. But I think earlier in this call we did talk a little bit about this, and you're right. That is a hard boulder to push up the mountain. But constitutional amendments have taken time to pass before, women's right to vote, et cetera. People don't like this. Americans don't like this. Now, right now, Republicans are they voted against disclosure. Justice Kennedy, in the majority opinion on this thing, assumed there'd be disclosure. And we had a 59-41 vote. This is after Scott Brown beat Martha Coakley and took Ted Kennedy's seat. And we were 59-41, and we had a disclose amendment. And they voted, it was skins and shirts. It was 59-41. We needed 60, of course. So this is why, and at the beginning toward the beginning of this call, I said that we need to keep the Senate majority. We need to keep the White House so that we can change this court. Because these are 5-4 decisions, one after another, Hobby Lobby, all of these decisions, 5-4, on mandatory arbitration, on all kinds of, everywhere you look, pro-corporate 5-4 decisions.
Senator, that's all the time we have for Q&A. Do you have any closing remarks? You want to recap anything you cared about?
Well, listen, thank you all for staying tuned for this long. I've enjoyed this. I hope you have. I'm a good senator, I think, and I want to stay there. It's frustrating at times. I just had a grandson about 14 and a half months ago, and this kid is a lucky kid. He, when I look at him, he lives in Washington, D.C. My son-in-law and my daughter live there, so I get to see him. I put him to bed, and when I look down on him sleeping in the crib, I think about how lucky he is, because he's got two very well-educated parents. He's my God, his grandfather's a senator. You know, he's a lucky kid. But every kid should be that. Every kid should have the opportunity this kid has. And when I was growing up, I grew up in middle class. My dad didn't graduate high school. My mom didn't go to college. My dad was a printing salesman. We grew up in, me and my brother and my parents, in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. I felt like the luckiest kid in the world because I was. Because I was growing up middle class, at the height of the middle class in America. And I want every kid to have the same kind of opportunities that I had. And that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for people who are in the middle class. I'm fighting for people who want to be in the middle class. My wife, when she was 17 to 18 months old, her father died in a car accident, a World War II decorated vet. Her mom was widowed at age 29 with 5 kids. And they made it because of Social Security survivor benefits. Someone asked about keeping Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid strong. I want to do that. But I want to make sure that we have preschool, early childhood education for kids who need it. I want to make sure that we are investing in the sciences. You know, when you cut out NIH grants, that means that you're creating less scientists. I have a lot of optimism about where this country can go if we make the right decisions, and that's why I want to stay in the Senate. And I really appreciate everybody who's helped today and donated today, and I like this format. This is kind of cool. It's the first time we did it. So thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thousands of you joined us tonight, and that concludes our Q&A portion. We still have our operators standing by, so if you want to give now, you still can. All you got to do is press 7 on your phone, and we've got operators standing by, and they will hang on as long as it takes to have a conversation with you and get your contribution.
The operators are standing by.
So press 7.
Press 7.
And that concludes our event.
That concludes our event.
I'll still be standing by to get your contribution.
Bye.
Thank you.